Hey guys, my name's Max Convexity. Thanks for tuning into my little channel. I've been threatening to do this video for a long time, and tonight I'm finally going to do it. This is my beginner's option course. I call it TLDR Option Basics because I like to kind of go over the main big points. I'm kind of a big picture guy, like I always tell you guys. There's better places to get more complete information. The first one that comes to mind is Retire on Dividends. I would say 95% of my subscribers are also his subscribers, so I bet you guys have already seen his videos. If you haven't, that's a great place to start, particularly because he covers options specifically as they pertain to the Definance and Yield Max and Curve NEOS funds, as they pertain to the high yield ETFs. So they're particularly pertinent to the subject matter that I usually like to discuss, which is high yield ETFs. But then also, SMB Capital, there's a guy named Seth Feuerberg, and he's awesome. I really like Seth. This guy is detailed, precise, organized. He particularly covers options from the standpoint of how to make money on them. Not so much theory, but they actually train traders to make money in real life, and they have a place in New York City, and you can interview with them, and if you're a good enough options trader, or if they think they could train you, you can go to New York City and work for them, and they'll give you a share of the profits. So this guy is great real world advice and super clear. I would highly recommend this course, and I'm going to link to it. It's an hour and 10 minutes long. But then also, more from the total beginner standpoint, we have Kurt over at Option Alpha. This guy's awesome also, and he also has a lot of advanced content. But he's a good place to start for people who maybe have never heard what an option is before. I think he goes a little bit slower than the guys at SMB. SMB kind of assumes you already know a little bit about, stock trading and stuff. But Kurt's or I guess his name's Kirk. I don't know either. I thought it was Kurt, so I don't know if if this is wrong in the caption or if my thing's wrong, but I'll follow up on that. All right, so this is a great graphic that Retire on Dividends used, and this, at the very most basic level, a call is a contract in essence to buy stock. So if you buy a call, it's similar to buying stock. If you buy a put is a contract to sell stock. So it's essentially shorting stock or being bearish on stock. So by the same token, when you sell a call, it's a bearish play, because when you buy a call, it's a bullish play. So it's the opposite. We'll get into all that in a few days. But when you sell a put, it's a bullish play. At the very most basic level, that's very true. All right. Options are a derivative. They would not exist without the underlying, which is the stock. The stock comes first. The options would not exist in a vacuum by themselves. Options aren't only on stocks, they're also on commodities and all kinds of different stuff. But for our sake tonight, we're going to talk about equity options, which is stock options. In some of the other courses, we'll talk about commodity options later on. But they're very similar. So they trade on a secondary market. Stocks trade in New York traditionally. In 1973, I believe it was, the Chicago Board of Options opened up an options exchange in Chicago. And Chicago's kind of ground zero for options and option strategies. Nowadays they have exchange. Nowadays they're traded all over the place. But in the old days, option traders were always out of Chicago. When you hear an option trader speak, lots of times these people that teach lessons on the internet or whatever, they're usually from Chicago, and you hear a lot of Chicago accents when you're getting option advice. And I like a Chicago accent, so I think it's cool. All right, so let's talk about use cases. Why do people mess with options if you can just buy stocks? Why do you even need a derivative? What's the deal? Well, here's the original intent of options, I believe, is to actually buy or sell the stock. You enter a call, you buy a call contract, you're entering an agreement to buy the stock. if you buy a put contract, you're entering an agreement to sell a stock. Warren Buffett does this all the time. He did, I believe, $8 billion worth of derivative trades in 2007 or maybe 2008. And he probably did it both years. But that's the original intent, is actually to use the option to end up acquiring the stock or to end up shorting the stock. But use number 2 would be to hedge a stock position. Mark Cuban made a bunch of money in the first .com, phase in the late 90s. He sold his company to Yahoo, and he had Yahoo stock, but I think under the terms of the agreement, he couldn't sell it for like a year. And he didn't want to see the billions of dollars he made, disappear overnight if we had a market crash. And so he bought puts on an internet index. I don't even know what it was. It's probably not around anymore. To insure his billions. And he spent $20 million on the puts. But it was all the liquid money he had at the time. But it ended up working out pretty good for him because he's worth $5 billion today. So something like that. All right, a third use, and this is a totally legitimate use, is what insurance companies do with them. Insurance companies take all the money that you pay them, because not everyone's going to wreck their car the same day or the first day. So they take all that premium money, and it's a lot of money, and they'll use it. They'll use that money to sell options to earn an income, and then whenever you do have a car wreck, a year down the line or whatever, they've made money off your money, and then they pay you back with the money they made. That's just part of the business plan. Banks do this as well, but also ETFs are doing it nowadays. Look at YieldMax, look at Defiance, look at Curve, Global X, ProShares, JP Morgan. That's what we talk about a bunch on this channel, of course. But retirement's another totally legit purpose for options. I first got into options because of Papa Convexity and Grandpa Convexity. Grandpa Convexity was selling calls back in the 70s on stock that he owned. My dad was a CPA, and Dad's use for it, or he is a CPA. He doesn't practice anymore, but I think, he's always a CPA. Once you're a CPA, you're always a CPA, I think. Dad loved them for tax planning purposes, to get around capital gains. We'll talk more about that on, in further lessons. But then there's another thing that options are used for, and this is especially the kind of options we're talking about tonight, which is people that buy call options. It's used for YOLO. Look at GameStop. It's used basically for gambling. The exchanges don't like to advertise this. But it's true. You cannot talk about options, specifically buying options, without recognizing that it's a legit deal, that people use them to gamble. They use them like lotto tickets. All right, so what I want to do is, I call this Too Long Don't Read, because I'm going to try not to keep you guys around forever. Options are not too hard, especially buying calls. It shouldn't take me too long to tell you guys about buying calls. Like I say, you should go to get a more thorough understanding. You should go to those other people, and then you can ask me questions or we'll follow up. But I'm going to try to make this fairly concise. All right, so I'm going to do an easy example, with easy math, and then I'm going to do a real life example, maybe with Apple or Coinbase. Maybe I'll look at Apple and Coinbase. That'd probably be fun. And then after that, I'm going to let you guys go, and I'm going to give you the homework assignment of going to watch the guy from SMB, going to watch Retire on Dividends, and going to watch Kurt at Option Alpha. All right, so let's look over here at my... All right, so this is going to be an easy math example. So in options, there's always a fictional company called XYZ. Whenever you're learning about options, people always say, okay, you got the XYZ company, and let's say it's selling for $100 a share, so we'll put 100 there. And let's say, and we're going to make these options weekly options that expire a week from now. Well, there's 5 trading days in a week, so I'm going to use days till expiration 5. So that changes the math a little bit, but anyway. So The top line here is the asset class options, and the bottom line is stocks. So we're going to compare an option to a stock. Like I say, they're derived from each other, and I think to really understand options, it helps to look at a similar stock investment. All right, let's talk first about contracts. We're just going to use one contract. One contract, one options contract equals 100 shares of stock. Everything in options, the price and everything is in hundreds. I'll show you more about that in a second. So we're going to say that this option costs $3 that we're buying. So that's called the price or the premium. Okay, but like I said, options are priced in hundreds, kind of like dogs, age in dog years, in sevens. Options are priced in hundreds. So when somebody says, I bought an option for $3, they didn't spend $3, they spent 300. All right, so for this easy example, the stock's price is at 100, and we're going to use the strike price of 100. Like I said, a call is a contract to buy a stock at a certain price, which is the strike price, and on a certain date, on or before a certain date. And the certain date is next Friday, so we're pretending like it's the Friday before, so we're going to use 5 days till expiration. We'll pretend like it's the end of the day on Friday. And XYZ is trading at 100, and we're going to buy a call at 100 for this example, just to make the math simple. We could also buy a call at 105 or 110 or lots of places, but let's just stick with 100 for now. All right, first most basic thing to know about options is when you buy an option, all you have to do is look at the strike price plus the premium you paid, and you add them together, that's your break even. Break even's 103 in this example. All right, let's look at the same stock investment. So somebody bought 100 shares of XYZ. Okay, and that's the same as one contract of XYZ for the purpose of accounting. Okay, so the 100 shares of XYZ cost $10,000, right? Because that's 100 times 100. To buy a contract in XYZ, a call option contract, in this example, costs $300. So this guy spent $10,000. This guy spent $300. Strike price is 100. The break even's 103. When you buy a stock, what's the break even? Well, the break even's whatever you bought it at. There's no premium. So that's one big advantage of buying stocks, of course. Your break even's lower. The one big disadvantage is it costs you more money. Just like everything in investing, when you have something that helps you, you have in another way it's also hurting you. It's the old "there's no free lunch" theory. Okay, so we're going to do some theoreticals here. Let's say by next Friday, let's say the stock went to 110. All right, so I'm going to punch in 110, and we're going to see how we would have come out in each circumstance. Okay, let's look at the stock first. You bought it at 100. It went to 110. You have 100 shares, so 10 times 100 is $1,000. That's your profit before commissions, of course. We'll say we're using Robinhood, so there's no commissions. So that equals a 10% profit. That's a nice job. 10% in a week is wonderful. All right, let's look over here. So the ending price in this example of XYZ company is 110. So the difference between 110 and the break-even level, remember you had to get to 103 to break even. The difference there is 7 points. All right, but in option points, 7 is $700. Okay, so you make $700 this way, and you make $1,000 with stock. So you actually make a little more with stock if you're just talking how much money you put in your pocket. Stock's more efficient from that standpoint. If you look at it on a percentage standpoint, the option's more efficient. So it depends on which way you're looking at it. Right here, this is a 1 week profit of 233 1/3%. That's not bad, but neither is a 10% profit. Here's my theory on options. When you buy a call, you're renting the stock. Think of it like that. When you buy the stock, you own it. So buying a stock's like buying a house. It costs more money up front. When you rent a house, it costs less money up front. You pay rent. Rent could be thought of as like a premium. So it's something else that's important to know is how much it's costing you to rent. And just for simplicity's sake, I like to break it down in how much it's costing per day. So if you look here, this guy paid $3 to rent this stock, XYZ stock, for 5 days. So 3 divided by 5 is 60. He's paying 60 cents a day. But as we know, options, 60 cents, you multiply by 100, that equals $60. There's advantages and disadvantages to each, but you can think of buying stock as buying something, and you could think of buying an option as renting the stock. And you aren't even really renting the stock, you're renting the upside above 100. All right, so now let's do another scenario, and let's say that XYZ stock by next Friday goes to 90 instead of going to 110. Let's say that this stock drops 10 points. Let's see what happens to the option. Okay. So let's first start with the stock. The stock went from 100 to 90. That's a 10-point loss. 10 times 100 is $1,000. So the person that owns the stock lost $1,000. All right. The person that bought this fictional call contract, he lost $3. And how come he lost $3? Well, in an option, you can only lose what you put in. Like I said, when you buy an option, you're renting the upside that's above the strike price. And you only, in the term of your rent is until the option expires. So in this case, this buyer rented the upside in XYZ stock for a week, and only the upside that's over 100. So if it closes under 100, he loses all his premium money. So that's why it's a $3 loss. Let's look at this, okay? So he lost $300, and the person that bought the stock lost $1,000. So the person that bought the stock lost more money in raw terms, but less money in percentage terms. Let's do this. Let's say the stock goes to 0. Let's say it's like Enron. The stock gets delisted. All right, well, this guy lost $10,000, which was his whole investment. Just like options, you can only lose what you put in. Same thing when you buy a stock. You can only lose what you put in. The problem is you have to put in a lot more to own a stock than you do to rent a stock. They both lost 3. This guy looks way smarter now. The guy that bought the option looks way smarter. Only lost 300, where this other guy lost 10,000. They both lost 100% of their investment. Let's do this. Wonder if we go to 100. All right. So let's say the stock doesn't move. Well, the person that bought the option only is renting the upside over 100, okay, and it didn't go over 100. Now let's look at the example if XYZ company goes to 103. All right, look at that. The option shows a break even. And if you're thinking, well, I thought we rented the upside in the company above 100. We did, but we had to pay $3. So we don't start profiting until it is 100 plus whatever we paid, in this case 103. So if the stock moved to 103 by expiration day, the guy that owns the stock would have made $300. The guy that owns the option would have broken even. Let's say that this company had a big earnings report and went to 120. Let's look at that. Okay, well, both people did well. The guy that owns the stock made $2,000. The guy that made the option or bought the option only made $1,700. But on a percentage basis, he made 25 times what this guy made right here, or 20 times. That's really nice on a percentage basis. You can also look at an option premium like a loan. When you buy a call, you're essentially taking a loan from the stock market, and they're charging you a premium. When you sell an option, you're providing a loan to the market or to the person that is on the other side of that trade. When you buy this call, it costs you $3 for 5 days. Just a real simple way to think of that is 60 cents a day, which of course in option terms equates to $60. Let's talk about the good stuff and the bad stuff. There's a guy on Tasty Trade that calls it gimmies and got yous. And for every give me in an option or an option strategy, there's a got you. I'm going to call it gnarly and bogus since I'm from the 80s, or since I went to high school in the 80s and college. All right, so the gnarly thing about the stocks, about owning stocks, are you get a dividend and you own part of the company. You don't own part of anything when you own an option. You're renting upside if you buy a call, but you don't own anything. If the stock pays a dividend, it has nothing to do with you. You don't get it. The good thing, another good thing about buying stock is time's on your side. The stock doesn't expire, whereas the option expires. So that would go on the bogus side, is you have to pay time decay, the option expires. This time decay and the fact that the option only has a limited lifespan is the reason why I always say when you buy options, you win, generally speaking, 2 out of 3 times. When you sell options, when you buy options, you win, generally speaking, 1 out of 3 times. When you sell options, generally speaking, you win 2 out of 3 times. The difference is because the buyer of options has to pay the time decay, and paying the time decay makes it where it's harder to win. When you're getting the time decay, you're earning the loan from the market, or however you want to look at it. Or if you're selling an option, you can look at it as you're renting that stock to somebody. The one bogus thing about the stock is you can lose more money in real terms because your loss is limited all the way down to 0. But if you have a stock like Enron, and there's other examples, there was a crypto mining one that got delisted a few years ago. But anyway, your loss is only limited by 0. But in that prior example, yet still a lot of money. You can lose $10,000 where you could only lose $300 with the option. Let's look at a real world example. Let's look at buying a call on Apple. We're going to stick with the same type thing. We're going to look at an at the money call, which is Apple's price is 180. So the at the money call would be the 180 call. So the real life thing here is, we look right here, this call costs $2.75 to buy. So that's what you're paying for rent. You're renting it for a week because it expires on the 12th. If you look at the profit loss graph, you can see, I see 2 things. What I can see is that you can win a lot more than you can lose. Let's say Apple goes up 5%. You win $745. Let's say Apple goes down 5%. You lose $275. It's asymmetric as far as the risk and reward goes. However, you have to look closely, but here's another thing you have to see. This is a really good way, a really good rule of thumb to see if you have the advantage in an option trade or if you don't. Look at what happens if the option doesn't move. And if you lose money if the option doesn't move, that means you do not have the advantage. And that's what happens when you're buying options. If you make money when the option doesn't move, that means that you are trading with the built-in advantage or the edge, and that's what happens when you sell options. And that also accounts for the 2 out of 3 winners versus the 1 out of 3. But in this case, if Apple goes nowhere, and I know that usually doesn't happen, but just for the sake of argument, if Apple doesn't go anywhere, you lose $160 in this example. So that's another way to look at it. Let's look here. Let's look at Tesla. Let's do a Tesla at the money call and let's look and try to see how options are priced. All right, so Tesla is trading at 237.49, and we're going to use 237.50. That's only 1 penny away from being at the money, so that's a very fair comparison. So look, this Tesla option cost $5.26, where this Apple option only costs $2.75. Well, what's the difference? Well, there's several things. The first thing is the price of the underlying. Other things being equal, the more expensive the underlying is, the more expensive the option is. If you had a stock that's $1,000, its options are always going to be more than a stock that trades for $100. The other thing to consider is the strike price, how far away the strike price is from being at the money. But in our case, we're just using at the money to make it simple. Another thing that goes into the option pricing model that market makers use is the risk-free rate. In other words, what are interest rates? That factors into the pricing, because like I say, these options are like taking a loan from the market. So the market makers figure what the prime rate is, or the rate that you could get risk-free money other places, and they have to use that in their option pricing model. Also, the volatility of the underlying itself matters. Apple is not near as volatile as Tesla. So even if Apple and Tesla were trading at the same price, even if Apple rallied from 187 to 237, so they're trading at the same price, the Tesla option's always going to be more expensive because Tesla's more volatile. This Tesla is trading at a vol of 42. I think the last time I looked, Apple's trading at a vol of like 10 or something. It's not very high. Let's just look here. I mean, let's just put in, search for symbol. Let's just put in Apple and let's see about some Apple pricing. We looked at Apple over here on this thing, which is option strat. I wanted to show you guys the profit loss, but we can also look at it this way. Here's an at the money option, or slightly in the money actually, but it's fine. And so they're saying Apple's vol is a 19. Well, Tesla's vol was a 40-something, so it's twice as much. So even if Apple and Tesla were trading for the same price, and they aren't, the Tesla option would be more expensive, about twice as much expensive. Okay, and this is also something that factors in also, the dividend yield of the stock itself. Some stocks, like Tesla, for instance, pay no dividend. So that space right there said 0, but that all goes into the price of the underlying, how many days till expiration, what the risk-free rate of return is, the volatility of the underlying, and the dividend yield of the underlying. That all goes in to make this right here, this theoretical price. What the option market maker does is he knows what the theoretical prices are, and he charges you a little bit more. He might charge you $3.75. He's going to mark it up from the theoretical price a little bit, so he'll have a little profit in there for himself. That's their business model. That's how they make money. All right. Next time I'm going to talk buying puts, and we're going to look at a real-life put trade with easy math. Then we're going to look at a theoretical, or we're going to look at a theoretical put trade first with easy math, and then we're going to look at a real-life example. Also, I'll try to choose one with easy math. And then we're going to look and see how puts are priced. But too long don't read is they're priced exactly like calls are. So tomorrow's lesson ought to be pretty easy. But then the night after that, we're going to get into spreads. And spreads are where you buy one option and you sell another option. Or sometimes 2 or 3 options. You might buy an option, sell an option, and then buy a third option. There's even spreads that have 4 legs. Where you buy one option, sell an option, then buy another option and sell another option. There's combinations, there's synthetics, and there's trades where you actually buy the stock and then do something with the option. We'll get into all that tomorrow night. Remember, this is not financial advice. Also remember, go watch the guy from SMB, Freuberg. Go watch Kurt from Option Alpha. And if you have any questions, ask me. or put them in the comments. Be back here same time tomorrow night for the put lesson. Thank you very much and have a wonderful evening.